bodies beat by the window seat. Little eyes look high up into blues and stars. I wanna surrender to those cosmic skies, whispering spells about what it means to be wise. There's glittering whites and shooting comets, milky bands that speak golden sonnets, intergalactic Janet, Janet from another planet.
Hey you, welcome back to Dricka Necole's universe. I am Dricka Necole, and we are back in our robes again today. As usual, I'm gonna let you guys, get comfortable. If you got a robe, slide that thing on because today we're gonna be going pretty deep. I mean, this is the platform where we go deep with one another. Anywho, but today things are going to be getting like really serious today. So I recently saw the movie, the Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners, and if you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend going to see that. But spoiler alert, there's a scene in the movie where um, the father, who is a pastor, he tells his son Sammy, who is the main character of the movie, you keep dancing with the devil, and one day it's going to follow you home. Now, some people say, "Oh, his father was casting a spell on him." Others argue that his father that was just simply warning him. From my perception, I see it as his father was indeed warning him, and he was warning him of the danger that came with Sammy's passion for music and playing his guitar, and not in the use of religious purposes. You know, from my perspective, I feel like his dad kind of had a valid point, not because he primarily wanted Sammy to use his musical gift and talents for religious purposes, but because of the warning that he was giving him. Now, I know sometimes you'll have some people that will tell you like, oh, you need to be cautious of people trying to warn you because that could be their way of trying to inflict fear into you. And I guess just depending on the circumstances, that could potentially be the case. But from my perception from watching the movie, I didn't necessarily perceive that. His dad, you can tell clearly, genuinely really cared for him and just wanted the best for him. So he gave him this warning. With that scene, it really puts you into this headspace where it just makes you think that oftentimes in life, when we have a deep passion for or a desire, a yearning, or just simply an interest in something or someone, we don't always stop and think about the cost that'll be paid, right? We don't think about what could come from this. And I know sometimes thinking of worst case scenarios actually results into you manifesting those worst case scenarios. So, at least for me, I know I try to not think about the what if situations, but I do think that sometimes, it you have sometimes it's good to think about what's going to come, because everything comes at a cost. They say nothing in life is really free. There's a cost for everything. And so I feel like oftentimes we don't stop and think about the cost that'll be paid when pursuing something, because we aren't necessarily being logical about whatever that passion, that interest, or that desire is. We want to do what we want to do, or we want to be with who we want to be with, because it's not really a matter of the mind. It's more of a matter of the heart. When I feel like when we're really passionate or driven by something, that's more of a heart matter than a mind matter. And so when we allow our actions and our behaviors to be driven from the heart space, sometimes it can cloud, our better judgment. And I'm not saying that, not good to be passionate about something or someone, because it is to have a passion, a drive to do something is very beautiful, because that's what lets you know that that is your heart communicating to you. I just think that it's very significant for us to be practical about this. And I don't know, maybe I'm saying this because I'm an earth sign, and there's the whole stereotype thing about, well, it's not stereotypical, it's actually pretty true, but earth signs, we tend to be very practical about things. Not everybody has the ability to be practical about something. Some people just go out here and just do things. And so, yes, it's okay to be passionate about something or another person. I just think that it's really is best if you also try and look at things from a logical approach as well. And some circumstances, a lot of us actually have to learn this the hard way, because we either don't listen to those who do try to warn us, or we don't listen to our first minds or our intuitions. And so ignoring these signs, ignoring those warnings, ignoring your intuition, which is your higher self also communicating to you, we find ourselves a little bit out of alignment, right? And when we find ourselves out of alignment with our higher selves, out of alignment with our intuition, that puts us in a very vulnerable space, where we can become a very easy target to demonic forces. Now, there's a lot of people in the world that loves to demonize a lot of things, but I think, it's best if we use that term really lightly when it comes to talking about some certain things, because a lot of things are not demonic, okay? But they can be. I will make that point. So I don't think that, regardless if you consider yourself to be a spiritual person, regardless if you consider yourself to be a religious person, when I speak on demonic forces, I'm sure either way, spiritual or religious, you guys would understand exactly where I'm coming from with this. Over the duration of the development of my own beliefs and my own philosophical approaches and personal studies of spirituality and religion, I came to discover that there are two worlds that have their own systems. You can look at this as heaven and hell. You can look at this as Christ consciousness and surface consciousness. You can look at this even as above, so below, right? For better terms, God, the universe, has its own system, way of being, and Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet, um, uh, Bills, however you want to identify it, they have their own systems. Satan, in my own opinion, Satan has, I don't want to say has control. Let's just say Satan kind of rules the 3D world, okay? Satan rules the 3D world. God rules the 5D world. Every day of our lives, we are faced and provided the free will. Some people argue that there's no such thing as free will. Unfortunately, I'm a person that disagree with that. Because if we don't have free will, then how do we have the ability to make decisions of our own? Right? Everybody like to say, oh, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. We have choices. Every day we are faced with those choices. Every day when we wake up, we get to decide how we want to live, operate, and maneuver through our existence here on this earth, this 3D realm. I'm sharing this with you because this information is very critical to know and to be conscious of, because too many of us out here are still acting and behaving out of satanic ways. Or another way of saying this, our shadow selves. Full on thriving in our shadow selves. These two worlds between God and Satan, now, because I want to make sure you also have this understanding, they pretty much are one and the same, right? They're one and the same because both worlds were derived from the same light source. The only thing is that Lucifer's world and system, the 3D existence, is a direct replica or copy paste of that one light source in which Lucifer and God both were derived from. The only thing is that Lucifer's world operates out of ego. Anything that pertains to the ego is what Lucifer's world operates and thrives on. That's money, power, control, hierarchy, and status. Whereas you have God's world, which operates opposite of Lucifer's world. That's love, wisdom, collaboration, and abundance, which all stems from the soul, right? I need you guys to stay with me on this. It sounds crazy. Trust me. I know how this sounds, but I just need you to hear me out. In this 3D world, a lot of us tend to make some of our decisions not from our soul space, but from our egos. And I don't think a lot of us really know that. We think that, oh, this is who we are. This is a part of who we are. Our egos, yes, are a part of us. And it's not to say that our egos are bad. I'm not saying that at all, because in a way, we need both. We need both. We need both our higher self and we need both our shadow selves. We just have to understand how to integrate them to work in our favor. But a lot of us are operating and thriving so much out of our ego. And this is where our emotions can get tricky, right? Because our emotions can lead us to act and behave out of our ego, which is Lucifer's source, right? Or our emotions can get us to act out of our souls, Christ, God's source, however you guys like to look at that. Then you have some people that, they like to portray like they don't have any emotions, but that's an illusion, right? That's an illusion because we were all created to have emotions. It's what makes us a human being, right? You're not a robot who doesn't have the database or the systematic design to be able to feel things. No, we're not robots. We're human beings provided with souls. We all have emotions. So somebody telling you that they don't have emotions, it's a lie. Don't believe them. They're creating an illusion for you. However, just like that light source in which God and Lucifer, Satan, however you want to identify him, were created from, that is all of us human beings on this earth. We are all one of the same, but we are different because we operate differently. Stay with me. In the movie Sinners, Sammy, being very passionate about his music and playing his guitar, from my perception, he was acting out of his ego by disregarding his father's warning because he wanted to do what he wanted to do regardless. We see and experience this in our everyday lives. And I think that we really see this the most when it comes to dealing with other people. I want to share an example with you based on a personal experience of mine. I came into connection with this guy for an interview for a part-time coaching opportunity. I was currently at a dead-end job that, just left me feeling undervalued, heavily underpaid, and just all in all drained, not really motivated to get up and see the next work day. And it didn't even help the fact that I was dealing with, a boss who was operating out of toxic masculinity. I'm just going to call a spade, operating out of his shadow side severely. The guy who, was interviewing me, he was the same age as me at the time. Very charming, very charismatic, very well spoken, and very handsome, The interview, it was very easygoing. He was someone that, was very easy to talk to. I don't know if this because we were the same age or not, but the conversation went very well. It didn't necessarily feel like I was like actually in an interview. And throughout that conversation, we found some similarities, but the biggest similarity that I think really connected us was how musically influenced we were, musically inclined we were. We both had a love for J. Cole. I'm a diehard J. Cole fan. I love J. Cole. He loved J. Cole as well. And so, I'm just like, oh my God, like this is really cool. Like this isn't something you get to experience, at least not for me. It's not something I don't experience that every day with someone where I'm able to connect with them, through similarities in music and things in that nature. And so, mind you, I was not in a headspace of being in a relationship. However, I didn't necessarily mind getting to know people while I was also focusing on, the trajectory of my career and of course all the changes that I was already experiencing in my life at the time. So, moving forward, the organization, they didn't really have many coaching sessions that were open that would align with my availability at the time. So he figured that I would still make a great candidate, to kind of keep in mind, when there were more openings, or even to kind of help him out with marketing, outreach, customer outreach and marketing, I do believe is what it was. So he asked me if he could stay in touch. Me not seeing it as an issue, I agreed to it. Every now and then he would send me, some music from J. Cole from Spotify. At the time, I wasn't like a big active person on Spotify, at least not for music purposes. So he would send me some music, and I'm like, okay, this is dope. Like it was simple as that, just sending music, and that was that. I didn't see any harm in it. So a few months go by, and he reaches out again with another song, in which that song, it sparked like a deep conversation between it. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it was a Kendrick Lamar song, because the conversation sparked something in regards to him being a Gemini, and the guy having a family member who was a Gemini. And so, that kind of sparked like a deep conversation between us. And, within that conversation, he asked if he could take me out. At first, I was a little hesitant about it. And the only reason I was really hesitant because, again, it's just like I'm not quick to jump into no relationship, right? But at the same time, my intention again is to at least get to know people, build friendships and things of that nature. So, I eventually agreed to it. I was hesitant, but I agreed to it. And, hanging out with him, we had a really great time. We talked for such a long time. We talked about so many things. I got to learn a little bit more about him. I got to learn about his family and where he came from, his education, his passion, his goals, things like that in his life. And, with the vibes being there, and just again, just all in all, his overall being, his characteristics, his charisma, everything, very witty, very, very intelligent. I'm like, okay, I can vibe with this. So, I kind of allowed myself to open up, because I'm really not an open book. I'm not that one to just go out here and just tell everybody my business. And, that's just not who I am. I'm a slow and steady person. So it takes some time for me to get to that point. So, I started to open up a little bit and, allow him to get close to me and let him know what my dreams and what my goals and everything's were, in which he seemed very supportive, very, very supportive of me, very uh empathetic, and just all in all, that the guy friend that I never really had for myself. So it was cool that I was able to connect with someone on this level. Yeah, because I'm just, especially when it comes to, for me, when it comes to interacting with guys, I'm really big on being friends, building that friendship. Because again, I don't just jump into relationships, especially not from previous experiences where, I did find myself jumping into relationships. And then while I'm in that relationship, I'm just like, how did we get here? How did this happen? So, I just learned that sometimes, most times actually, slow and steady is the best pace to really go. um so it felt good, like I said, to be able to be in a space where I was building that connection, that friendship with the guy. So I'm just really big on that. I'm really big on that. I've always said, since learning from past mistakes, that if anybody's going to be my man, they have to be my friend first. So I stand 10 toes about that. And he was aware of that as well. I made sure I communicated that to him, made sure we had a mutual understanding what was going on, because again, I did not want to find myself again in a relationship that moved very fast, whether that was my doing or the other person is doing, trying to get me into that relationship really fast. It just wasn't happening for me this time. So we took some time to actually build and cultivate this friendship between us, which put me in a space where I felt really comfortable with him. Eventually, the connection, began to take a more serious turn, as he was very expressive about his feelings and his intentions. My feelings eventually started to grow as well, but there was just like a part of me that was still kind of resistant. And I feel like that a part of me was only still resistance because I knew where I needed to primarily focus my time and energy, and that was on the trajectory of my career. I wouldn't say I had just experienced a spiritual awakening, but I was still in that space where I was very much so coming into alignment with my spirituality, and what it is that I was meant to do here on this earth, and things in that nature, still going through my studies and all of that. So that was like top priority for me. In addition to getting out of that job that I was at, like I just knew I had to leave. I have to leave this job. This job is not helping me. I feel like my time here is coming to an end. And so, yes, I was very resistant in the beginning, or kind of throughout the relationship, because I did not want to lose sight of that. I did not want to lose sight of what it is that I was trying to cultivate for myself, for my, for me, just for me. Eventually, life started life in. And for him, life took a really drastic turn for him, that hit him emotionally. Now I'm emphasizing that because again, I want you guys to stay with me. I want you guys to stay with me on this. The changes that his life brought hit him emotionally. And I don't know about any of you guys, but somebody once told me that you can really get to see a certain side of a person when their emotions take a hit. Because let's go back to what I said earlier. Emotions can be tricky. And when dealing with emotions, you can either act out of your ego or you can act from your soul. So I want you guys to just stay with me on this. So the changes in his life, they hit him emotionally. Now, the changes that I was going through as well, because it's crazy. Both of our pathways were kind of aligned. So in my mind, because again, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I was meant to meet this person for a reason. This person was put on my path for a reason. And ever since I really got into alignment with my spirituality, whenever I connect with the person, that's kind of the first thing I'm thinking, like, why are you here? Like, and I'm not joking, I'm so serious. Whenever I connect with somebody, who sent you? Why are you here? What are you here to teach me? You here to teach me something. I'm not playing. I'm so serious. Because I don't play with people. Okay, people are investments. I don't go into people's lives, or when I'm brought into somebody's life, somebody's brought into my life, I don't play with them. Okay, I've always been a person that was like, oh, you take life too serious. You have to. Okay, I understand it's time to play, but you really do have to take life seriously, especially if you want more for yourself. You have to take your life seriously. But yes, do find time to play and stop and smell the roses and all that good stuff. So, I'm understanding that he's here for a reason. Um, or we both are in each other's life for a reason. So with the change that I was going through, yes, they hit me emotionally. They're going to hit your pride. They're going to hit your ego. But, I was doing the best I can to still show up for myself, because I'm the kind of person where it's like, I don't know. I've never really had an easy life. I've never really had an easy life. So I've kind of had to learn how to handle the punches that life throw at me without, again, losing sight of my focus, what it is I need to be focused on. So I'm doing the best I can to just show up for myself every day, try to speak positive of my life despite what was going on externally. So with both of our lives going through these, and it was quick changes too, going through these quick drastic changes, it was very interesting to see how both of us operated emotionally around that. Me noticing how the changes were affecting him, I just told myself to focus on being a supportive friend. Because again, in my mind, I'm still build that friendship first. Be his friend, be his friend, be his friend, build that friendship, build that friendship. So I'm like, let me just be a supportive friend, because that's how I am. If any of my friends going through, I just want to be there for you. I want to be able to provide that emotional support, because I feel like it's the least I could really do. I'm not rich. I can't help you financially, but I can, I could do what I can. And so that's pretty much what I was doing, just trying to be there for him. I kept him company any free time that I had, especially if I had already, prioritized myself. I made sure I spent time with myself, made sure of that. But also, made sure that I made time for him, and gave him, just provided him a safe space, a space for him to be himself. Because I'm real big on treating people how you want to be treated, right? Because again, I don't play with people. I just don't. So I wanted to make sure, I provided that safe space for him to be who he was, without judgment, and just provide that emotional support for him, but just make sure I was there for him. Because as a person who, never had an easy life, I understand how hard life can really hit you. I didn't want him to feel like he had to go through that alone. I didn't want him to feel like he didn't have nobody there for him, especially because he didn't have no family in the where we were living. He didn't have nobody there. So, and I understand that. I understand feeling alone, and feeling like you don't have nobody you turn to. I understand that. So that's why I want to make sure that, I was just being that supportive friend that he needed, providing him company so he didn't feel alone, like he had to go through all this by himself or suffer in silence. I even brought him food just to make sure he ate. It was just, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I could tell it was a lot. Both of us are very strong individuals, very, have really strong wills. But again, I just wanted him to make sure he didn't have to, or I just wanted him to feel as though he didn't have to go through that alone. So, it got to a point where he felt like he needed to move back home, especially because he didn't have no family in where we were. So him feeling like he needed to go back home, in addition to, you know, his family, you know, they too was like encouraging him, like, yeah, just come on home. You know, you have a home here. There's food. There's you know, you have everything you need here. Just come on home. And so, you know, we did just that. We put our heads together because, again, like I said, I wasn't going to just leave him out there by himself to deal with his problems on his own. I wanted to be there for him. I wanted to be that supportive friend for him. So, you know, we put our heads together and we did just that. I helped him move out his apartment and, you know, just helped him get home. So he got home. Fast forward, we're still maintaining our connection from a distance. And something I expressed to him was, you know, I have a desire to at some point leave my hometown. And the way that my life was going at that moment, it just like, it was cracking down on me. It was like, I gotta go. It's time to go. It's time to go. Because, you know, sometimes when you stay where you're most comfortable, you stunt your own growth. Now, mind you, I was born and raised in that state. I knew that state like the back of my hand. You know, I grew so much there, but just the way that my life was going at the time, I was like, I think it's time. I think it's time to really start looking elsewhere. So him knowing this, and in addition to the distance between us and us wanting to be, you know, close to one another and just in each other's presence again, he invited me to come to his family home. And me coming to his family home, it was supposed to be, you know, providing a safe space for me, a supportive space for me, um, all giving me the time to really think and, you know, start a new life for myself, just all in all, turn over a whole new leaf and also get to experience something that was different. And so I liked the idea, but knowing me, I was hesitant. But the main reason why I was hesitant is because prior to that point, we had already experienced 2 headbutts. 2. And these 2 experiences had they had revealed to me a different side of him. Now, nobody's perfect. I get that. We all have different sides of ourselves that, you know, we show to the world. And there's a side to us that we don't like to show to the world. This different side of him, you know, it kind of set me back emotionally. So I found myself pulling myself back emotionally because it kind of shocked me, just based on how he handled the situation and how he expressed himself. And so I'm just like, okay, like, I know you got a lot going on in your life right now. And I feel like that was also me trying to justify it also. Because I'm a person that understands that nobody is perfect. So learning my lessons from previous experiences, you know, I'm telling myself you need to go into these connections with these people without any expectations. Because they say that they say having expectations can lead to disappointments. So I've kind of like retrained my mind to just like expect nothing. Expect nothing. The only thing you can, I think, really expect from a person is for them to show up. I would say what you can expect and what you can trust is for that person to show you who they're going to show you. And so that was the headspace that I was in. So I'm just like, I was just a little shocked because it was just crazy. It was just crazy how the situation, just the overall situation, how he handled it, how he expressed himself. It shocked me. Both incidents, they were mind blowing, right? They just set me back. and they got resolved. So we can say they got resolved. And like I said, when I look back onto it, I'm just like, I found myself just justifying the situation, just like, you got a lot going on, nobody's perfect, like just saying things like that, just again, just justifying the situation, even though deep down I felt how I felt. And again, it pushed me back. When I say push me back, like it turned me off a little bit. It turned me off. Turned me off because I saw red flags. And moving forward, I tried to justify them in a way. But deep down, the feeling did not leave, you know? So I like the idea, but I was hesitant about it. But me, of course, feeling like it was time for me to move on, take that leap. I thought to myself that, this, really could be an opportunity to fulfill that desire that I have, in addition to still growing our connection, because we were still in a growing phase. And so, I packed my things and I went well on my way, and I did it confidently. Yes, I was nervous, but I was excited at the same time. I was nervous because, again, it was something new. I was going into something that I was not familiar with at all. I've never moved out of my hometown, never. So it was a little nerve-wracking for me. But I didn't want the fear of something that was unfamiliar to me to hold me back from doing something that I had longed to do. So I just told myself that, no relationship, again, I was justifying, no relationship is all peaches and cream, whether that's romantic, platonic, whatever, it's not a fairy tale, right? And I know me, I can get caught up in this dream state, and that's what really sometimes causes an issue for me. So, I went with it. I understood that, we were going to have disagreements and we were going to have arguments. And so that was that for me. I took the biggest leap of my life and I moved out of my hometown and state at that. It wasn't just moving from one city to the next. No, I moved out of my whole state, home state, born and raised in, moved out of it. So to make a long story short, taking that move, I found myself in the deep pit of hell. Deep pit of hell. My first day there, we had a disagreement. I don't even remember what the disagreement was about. I just remember that from my perspective, in my own opinion, it didn't need to lead to the extent of that. Excuse me. And that's kind of how I felt about most of our, I don't like arguing. Okay. I don't like arguing. I believe that we can talk things out without getting to the extent of yelling at each other. I don't do that. And I don't like that because that's how my upbringing was. It was dysfunctional like that. I don't want dysfunction. So first day there, already. And it didn't stop. It was nonstop. Not to mention, as soon as I arrived, I experienced a major loss of appetite. Now, I'm a person that don't really already have much of an appetite. I'm an intermediate, or am I saying that right? I'm a faster, okay? I'm a faster majority of my existence. I'll eat 1-2 times out the day and I'll be good. But this was an experience where I didn't have the stomach to eat anything. I didn't have no cravings, nothing. And trying to feed myself felt like I was making myself sick. I never felt like that before in my life. I never felt like that before in my life. And so, I kind of just took notice of how much in shock my nervous system was in. Shock. Every other day, there was some form of dysfunction and chaos. And what made it even worse for me is that I was always somehow at fault for it. Somehow always at fault for it. Sleeping was hard to do. I'm not a person that have issues with sleep. I mean, I am a night owl and an early bird. I can go to bed as late and wake up as early. I thrive off 3 to 4 hours of sleep. But I struggled to go to sleep and stay asleep. If I would go to sleep, I found myself up like within an hour or two. Eventually, I started to lose motivation to create. My podcast took a pause at the time. I just really started to feel like I was being torn apart bit by bit. And it was a triggering experience for me because the rage that filled him brought flashbacks up from my upbringing. I come from a dysfunctional home, and getting to know him and understand where he came from, it was the same for him as well. So me knowing this, it was starting to put a lot of things into perspective for me. The quick to anger, the just all the yelling, it was mind blowing. And the crazy thing about it is that it wasn't just me he treated in this way, but I also saw how he treated his grandmother. She was also a victim to it as well. I mean, she could just ask him a simple question and he would just pop off. I mean, there wasn't an off button. The level of emotional abuse, which is at an all-time high, in which he would accuse me of doing to him. There was a lot of gaslighting going on. If I tried to express any of my concerns to him of the matter, express my concern for how I felt, like how I didn't, like how he was speaking to his grandmother, the tables will always be reversed on me. Saying that I didn't like this or I didn't like that, the tables always reversed on me. Saying that, I would appreciate it if you do this, or I would appreciate, the tables always was reversed on me. And, he spoke so highly about how I was embarrassing him and how I was not giving him respect and how I was draining his energy, when I felt like all I did was treat him accordingly, treat him with respect. But also at the same time, I started to tell myself, well, how can I give you something you can't give me? So when the arguments was happening, he's yelling, he's doing all the yelling. I'm just sitting there, quiet. Sometimes I would even sit there and have a crazy look on my face, and that would just piss him off even more. Or if I would laugh, chuckle at something he said, that would piss him off. That would piss him off. My stoicism he didn't like it, and he even tried to mock it at times. I'm gonna be just like you. He even tried to mock it, because I just started to reach a point in clarity in this situation. It's just like, why feed into that? Now, there were times where he would be yelling in my face and I would pop right back off to him, or I would get smart at the mouth right back with him. But I understood that was me that's exactly what he was looking for. So I just stopped. I just stopped reacting. And anytime the arguments would happen, I'm just sitting there in silence, no expression. I listened to this man talk about me like a scum to his family. When I was getting interviews and, job offers, he would want me to sabotage them because he wanted me to do what he wanted me to do. So when the concern of control was brought up, I was met with gaslighting and defensiveness. It was unbelievable. I was bullied. I was accused of not being mature and not as self-sufficient. Anytime that I would make for myself to try and push through my creative blockages, to try and, continue with my spiritual studies, and anytime I made time for myself, it was an issue because I wasn't giving him attention. When I didn't give him the validation that he sought, it would set him off. He would make slick remarks towards the things that I created, in which was crazy to me because he once supported and praised those things. The personal things that I shared with him, that I was comfortable sharing with him. Because mind you, let's not forget of how resistant I was. Let's not forget how resistant I was. See, he didn't know everything about me. He only knew the things that I shared with him, that I wanted to share with him. But the things that I did share with him was used to weaponize me. My interest in spirituality, which also was something that was supported, was used against me. The whole script that was presented was entirely flipped, or may I say that the mask or the false persona that he presented was being revealed. Every day I stayed in that situation, I received more and more clarity and of who and what I was dealing with. He was triggering wounds that I didn't fully heal, and I was triggering his wounds and bringing light to the demonic spirit that was attached to him. No matter how down I felt internally, each day I held my head high, and I stood up to him, because I know what it feels like to lose myself in a connection. And I told myself that this was something that I was not going to do again. Each time I rebelled against his need to control and manipulate, I revealed his demons and hit his ego every time. Every time. See, the thing about demonic spirits is they don't like to be called out. They don't like to be called out. They don't like when you don't obey them. Lucifer, from what I've learned, because again, he's not much different from God, but he is. Lucifer uses people, places, and things to bring you down and stunt your forward movement. When Lucifer notices that you are steering away from the operations of his system, he's going to do everything in his power to try and get you back. I knew exactly how I attracted such a person. I attracted such a person because I was not vibrating as high. Mind you, I told you I was in a job that had me feeling all out of sorts. I was feeling insecure, and I was feeling down about how my life was going. I was feeling a little inadequate of myself. This is all the devil needs to come in and get you. You can have a small inclination of doubt, a small inclination of hopelessness, sadness, whatever. This is all he needs to feed off of. I immediately came to this conclusion that I was dealing with Satan in the flesh. And I really don't like to say that because I'm the kind of person that sees the good in everybody. And I'm not here to say that he was not a good person. Everybody has good in them. Everybody does. But it's so sad that when we internalize the negative things that happen to us and we allow those things to take over our life and who we become and who we show up to this world. It's sad. It's really sad. And I knew that about the circumstances of my life coming up from where I came from. I knew that I didn't want what happened to me, what I experienced in my life. I didn't want it to kill my optimism, because I've learned long ago I'm a natural optimist, and being an optimist has gotten me so far in my life. But yeah, it's also how I found myself in situations that were not good for me. He didn't know how much of a fighter I am. You cannot push me down and expect me to stay down. I've been doing this my whole life, which he wouldn't have known, because although, again, I opened up to him, I only shared with him what I wanted him to know. I feel like this is really how you know if a person is loyal. All you gotta do is tell them something and see what they do with that information. The information I shared with him, he used it to gossip, to talk down on me and my life, and he used it as a weapon to tear me down. That's called weaponization of information. You see, just like Sammy and how his dad warned him, my best friend did the same thing for me. Even though she didn't know about the guy, or she didn't know about me moving until the day of, when she called me to see where I was going from checking my location. I would say about 20 days there, me and her were texting, and I'm telling her about the things that I was noticing and already experiencing, and her exact words to me were, "Dricka, you know what narcissistic behavior looks like." That is what he is portraying, just in a different form that you may not be able to recognize. And she was right. The thing is, I did recognize it. I did. I recognized from the first incidents that we had. My issue was I kept justifying him. And when you continue to justify a person's bad behavior, you are, in a way, rewarding them for that bad behavior, in which they're going to continue. Even if you don't reward it, they're going to continue it regardless. But I was also letting him know that I was okay with being treated in that manner. And the crazy thing is, when I would speak up to him and I would let him know the things that I didn't like that he was doing, and even he knew. That's the thing. Some people, they know what they're doing. Most people know exactly what they're doing. He would even know how he was behaving, and he would apologize. But even after apologizing, he would go right back to doing exactly what he apologized about. Sometimes I look back and I ask myself, if I would have let her known about the things that I saw back in my hometown when, the first incidents arose between me and him, had she given me that same warning, would I have listened? Because just like Sammy didn't listen to his father, I didn't necessarily listen to my best friend who told me that I needed to go. She was very happy, once I got out of the situation and was still doing well. But I can tell that I disappointed her because I didn't leave sooner. I took the abuse. I took it. And my best friend, she looks up to me and she holds me in high regard because of who I am at the soul level. But just like any other rough experience that I've ever endured, there was a lesson to be learned. When I watched Sinners and got a good look at the portrayal of each highlighted cast member in the movie, I immediately got a glimpse of the 7 deadly sins that the characters portrayed. In comparison to Sammy, not taking heed to the warning his father gave him, and me not taking heed to my best friend's warning, or even the warning signs that were presented to me back in my hometown before even taking that leap to move to a whole different state. I knew that I was already attainable to Satan because I was operating out of the sin of sloth. Sloth, from the biblical essence, isn't just about being lazy. Because I know when you hear sloth, you think of the animal who moves slow. It's not about just being lazy. It's about spiritual negligence. I put myself at risk when I didn't follow my intuition. I didn't take heed to those red flags. I started collecting them. I didn't listen to the Most High when they were showing me these signs that I needed to leave the situation alone. I disobeyed him. I disobeyed God by going against my own Christ consciousness, very much like Sammy. So in the end, I had to pay the price for it. And I had to suffer the consequences of my own actions and behavior. The devil is tempting and very persistent. Demonic spirits and entities, they're all around us and they shape shift into many forms. That is something we need to understand. The devil comes to us through the consumption of music, alcohol, drugs, environments, and worst of all, people. I shared this story because I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. I'm sharing this because I warn you to take heed to the things that are brought to your attention as a message to go the opposite way. Because just like how God can dictate your life, so can the devil. And both of them come with a cost. Don't think that one of them is a free lane. No, both of them come with a cost. The question of the matter is, which one are you willing to pay? Because the devil never gets tired, but God is just as restless. So I suggest you choose your source wisely. When the devil come knocking at your door, are you going to answer and let him in? Until next time, you guys. Peace.